Welcome. Welcome. Hat chat number 26. Oh, I'm in the process of getting a fizzy drink delivered to me. Wow, I'm just like, I feel like I just went through like a whole like maze of things to try to get ready. Just had a lot of thoughts running through my mind today. So pardon me. Just thinking a lot about like formatting and things like that. I'll just see if anybody joins me today. But yeah, really good day. Thank you. The topic for today, or at least the hat of the day, what's listed on my screen, is a Dobbs Fedora. Just a kind of standard fedora from the 1960s or so. And, I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But yeah. Hey, Paul, how's it going, my man? How you doing? Hopefully all's good over on your side of the pond. I'm going to, pardon me while I open up this fizzy drink. I'm now officially in the fizzy drink phase of the day. I feel like I'm a little bit out of breath because I was just running around just trying to make sure I had everything ready. Hey, Ian, how's it going? You guys kind of already know a little bit about like what I wanted to initially kind of talk about, but I'll throw up the welcome sign here just to make sure everybody knows. Yeah, it's good to have you guys on, Paul. I forgot when the last time you were on. Sorry, it's that part of the gift and the curse about doing these things daily is that I don't know. It feels like I should remember what I did the day before or the day before that. I just don't remember, honestly, to be quite honest. Ian says hunky dory. I love it. I love it. I always wonder what the origin of hunky dory was. Ian, you probably already know, or you can find out really quickly and kind of opine. It's one of those phrases that you hear all the time, and you hear it so often, you don't really think about it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the origin. It's just a fun word, like a fun phrase to say, right? Hunky dory. Obviously, Dory is not a reference to the Finding Nemo character. Hunky dory existed way before that, and I believe that's Dori. I could be wrong on that, but great character, but not, I believe, the origin story of hunky dory. But yeah, it was a pretty good day so far. So over here in the States, gentlemen, it is Labor Day. Labor Day is kind of a federal holiday that since the late 1800s here in the U.S., and we kind of celebrate kind of the efforts of our workers. All right, we know that the folks that are out there kind of earning a living are a big central part of our economy. Well, just about, I say that about our economy. That's, I think, every economy, right? Or at least most economies, right? I'm pretty sure this applies to you guys over in the UK. But we know that 70% of the economy, at least our economy, is consumer spending, right? So yeah. Paul says, I think it was Thursday or Friday I was last on. Happy Labor Day. Thank you. Thank you. I know I mentioned this earlier in a previous stream, but it is kind of an ironically named holiday, right? We celebrate workers, and the idea of labor and the importance of labor, but then we don't work. I understand why, but it's just still kind of ironic, right? Ian says, it's originally American. Hunky is fit. Dory is less certain. Wow. All right, look at that. See that? That's good. The power, that's the nice thing about hanging out with folks that are from other places, right? So things that I would kind of gloss over because I just heard it my whole life. Somebody else who's not as familiar with the phrase, or basically sees it as something that like kind of like they study, right? It's kind of like with language, right? A lot of the folks that I know that study language and take language seriously that are not native English speakers, they teach me things about English, right? Isn't that ironic? That somebody that studies this stuff knows it in many ways better than somebody that grows up speaking the language, because again, it's not second nature to them. They had to put an effort to do it. And it goes to show you why I got it. I kind of do research right before a lot of shows. I will go and do research because again, I learn it better when I go and study it, right? And I think I teach it better. Again, it's not meant to be just me lecturing here. That's not the whole point of this channel. The whole point of this channel is basically what we're doing right now. Ian drops a hunky dory, and I'm like, wow, that's interesting. What's that about? And then Ian, of course, being the good, I think Ian is a fine researcher, whether he gets paid formally to do that or not. I think Ian's an excellent researcher. Thank you, Ian. You, Paul, and Morgan, you guys are my core. Thank you guys so much for everything you guys provide here on the channel. And Morgan, I'm sure Morgan is still probably traveling. I know she's kind of been really busy. I'm really eager to find out from Morgan. We all saw kind of her new shark gill ribbon. So she sent that out in our group chat in Facebook, and it looks gorgeous, right? Obviously, very beautifully done. I don't know if Morgan ever shared who actually did that ribbon for her, but I definitely want to find out, right? Ian says, I had to learn English grammar before studying other languages. Yeah, unfortunately, and I don't know how much of this applies to you guys over in the UK. The public school education system in the US is really not that strong, right? So we have pockets of schools that are really strong. I happen to go to high school in one of the stronger schools in New York City, and probably more in New York State or even region. Here in the DC metro area, we have a high school, Thomas Jefferson, which is usually ranked #1 or sometime in the top 3 in the nation every single year that they do school rankings. But you kind of have to test into those schools, right? You can't just go and say, okay, I'm going to Thomas Jefferson, or I'm going to Brooklyn Tech, I'm going to Stuyvesant, Bronx Science, and all the other magnet schools that are probably just as good, but I can't name them. You have to test into them, and it's one of those things where it's kind of the gift and the curse. And a lot of folks, that's actually coming under fire here in the US because of admission standards, right? So regardless of how you feel about that, it's just something that it's fact, and I'm not going to get political here, but yeah, I definitely have some opinions because I do believe in merit, right? I do believe in meritocracy, but I also know the value of diversity. But again, sometimes those things don't necessarily play well with each other. So anyway, I'll get off that soapbox because I don't want to open up that can of worms. But yeah, again, thank you guys for rocking with me. Again, as you guys have already realized, a part of this channel, part of the reason why this channel was created was one, it's something that I've always wanted to do. And two, it was something that happened basically as a function, as a direct result of my walking, right? Remember I told you I shared a little bit about myself. I'm somebody that probably, if I would go get formally diagnosed, I'm pretty sure I would get classified as ADHD. It's something that I knew it in the back of my mind, but I never really maybe I never really got myself to admit it. And I don't know why. I mean, maybe it's because there is still a stigma of a lot of things. And, I just feel like I'm kind of the bastion of a lot of stigmas that, I'm like, I don't want to add another one. Right. So yeah. And what I found is, and luckily I found out through a variety of sources, that exercise, this is something I knew helps me, like my walking helps me. It helped me lose a lot of weight back when I was 300 pounds. And it helped my thinking, but I never knew why. And then I realized that if you have ADHD, something like walking, either outside or on a treadmill, some kind of physical activity is really helpful for creating a little clarity in the mind. And it made all sense. It made so much more sense, right? And I've been reading a little bit more about it, and I'm kind of like, okay, it's pretty obvious. This kind of describes me. Every single piece that I read. And again, not that I'm smart enough to self-diagnose. I don't recommend that, right? Doctors will tell you that. You don't have a medical degree. You don't have my credentials. So please don't go and self-diagnose. But again, we can't help it, right? We want to understand ourselves. I know I do. And I can't help but think that just fits me way too much. So today I went on my walk, And one of the things that again, sometimes I'll have like little epiphanies, little mini epiphanies, because I got thinking about the format, right? It's Labor Day, the very first day of September. Most of the U.S. is on federal holiday. And I was just thinking about the longevity of the channel, right? I mentioned that Hat Chat will continue happening for as long as I have the energy level. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, okay, maybe instead of waiting for my energy levels to wane, maybe what I'll do is I'll preempt that a little bit and kind of come up with a format that will allow me to sustain the show beyond when, well before my energy levels wane. Ian says, I just mentally calculated 300 pounds into stones and pounds. That's definitely pretty large. Yes, it is. Yes, it was. And yes, it is. So, again, I don't want to make this kind of like a weight loss channel, but we certainly can do that. Remember, I told you that my walking helps me and that eventually maybe I'll get myself a treadmill, right? I have a standing desk, even though I haven't really done a live stream standing, only because my wall's pretty plain. Maybe when I get my wall, I think today might be a good day to start hanging some hats up on the wall, right? We've already been here for like a month. It's probably a good time. And I don't know, I'm pretty sure I'm going to hang them up at the 6 foot level. That's kind of my preferred, because I'm just under 6 feet. So I feel like, somewhere here, yeah, if here was when I was standing, it's kind of a good level. So I'm going to probably stick to that. But maybe that will motivate me to stand up the desk a little bit. If you guys want to see the hats that will hang up eventually over here, you know what? Maybe what will happen is, I'll have a hat on and I'll be talking about a hat, and you guys about, what about that hat right there? What's that about? And then maybe I can go grab that hat and talk about it, and it'll be really interactive, right? So definitely want to do that. And then obviously like I mentioned, if I get a treadmill here, we could do kind of a walk and talk, right? And maybe that'll become a series, but I don't know if I want to call a series walk and talk. But what I do want to do is introduce essentially a reshuffling of the format, right? So we only have one format here called Hat Chat, right? And it will still be a Hat Chat. It just will be a little bit different than what you guys, well, maybe a little different, right? It's we have done what the new Hat Chat will be similar to what I've done before, but it'll be similar. It would be more like what I do with Paul, right? Paul comes on here as a special guest, and I will continue doing that. So like if Paul wants to come on here and talk about something specific or just anything in general, that will be the future of Hat Chat, right? And the nice thing is that it may or may not happen at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right? Because Hat Chat will be when I definitely have at least one guest on here, maybe more, and we'll have kind of like a roundtable discussion, right? It'll be a true Hat Chat in video format, and we'll be talking about anything and everything related to hats. But let's just make sure. I think I got an incoming message from Paul. Maybe Paul's trying to join the chat and couldn't get in. Let me make sure. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Paul just sent me a photo. I'm gonna try to Paul, hopefully you don't mind sharing this photo a little bit later. I think I'm gonna include this in my I'm gonna include this in, pardon my my interruption here. Paul just sent a great photo, and I just want to make sure that I have it here. And I'm just gonna call this, that way I'll start off with that photo. Yeah, excellent. Paul, thank you. That was great. Paul just, if you're wondering, Paul just sent me in the group chat a picture of his hat wall. So I will share that on this stream for sure. If Paul's okay with it, I'm just, I want to make sure I get his blessing. Okay, so that's there. Let's see. I can jump on the call today if you like me to. Absolutely, Paul, jump on the call. There's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, that really is the purpose of this, is And then, when I call it Hat Chat, right? It is called Hat Chat number 26. It would actually be a true Hat Chat. Hey, Paul, how's it going, my friend?
Hey. Oh, what's happening
It looked like you were just a great hat, by the way. Great hat. That color. Now, this is the teal or turquoise hat that we saw the other day, I believe.
Oh, I'm not quite sure what's going on here. Hang on.
Are you having some trouble?
Hang on. Let me just come back in and come back.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, let's give Paul a chance to hop back in. And that way we can kind of like, we can have a true hat chat, right? Just how I just discussed. Paul, having a guest like Paul. Paul, I'm going to let you in a second. Here we go. Is that better? It could be Paul. You're not hearing me. It could be that Paul's. Maybe you're muted, Paul, and yeah, I'm not sure. Are you able to hear me?
Not sure what's happening there. Hang on.
Ian, are you able to hear me at least, Ian? I just want to make sure I just want to make sure it's not something I did. Yeah, we'll just give Paul a chance. Paul, feel free to jump out of here and then jump back in. I will let you back in. But that was Paul. Let me just make sure I have Paul's information here scrolling. So when he comes back in, you guys can kind of check out Paul's YouTube channel. Paul's the owner of Passion for Hats. Paul is also a British bespoke hatter, and he runs PJ Murphy and Sons website over at the website located here in the scrolling banner. Please support him. He's a great gentleman. I can hear Paul too. Yeah, I could hear Paul as well. Maybe Paul's yeah. So Ian says he can hear me. He can also hear Paul. So it probably is like a muting thing, or maybe Paul was just hearing feedback, right? Sometimes that happens when you have the stream going on and then you have something else going on and you can get some feedback. But Paul will be back. I'm sure he'll figure it out. Yeah, there we go. So Paul is all right. Paul, is that better?
That one. Yeah, that's better.
Excellent.
Yeah, I just thought I wasn't sure whether I was going to get a call from a client, so I thought, well, I'll just type in today. But then I thought, no, I'll come on if you'll have me on, I'll come on.
Absolutely, Paul. You're always welcome. Like I said, without obligation, obviously. I don't want to make this an obligation, but you're always welcome here. And you don't need to have a topic of the day, but obviously, you're always welcome to to do that. So and I don't know how much of the formatting change that I mentioned you caught. I did announce that there was going to be a format change, and I'll just put the Q&A here. That way you guys can feel free to chime in, ask me or Paul any questions that you might have, about what I'm going to announce about the formatting, because I'll continue that discussion. But what I do want is to hear from you guys, right? From my request for you guys that might be listening and might join us. As you learn about this new format, one, I want to know whether you guys think it's good or not. And obviously, Paul, you can speak your mind. Not that you wouldn't, but I want to make sure it's like, Luke, that's a terrible idea. What I will ask is like, this is what's better instead, right? It's kind of when I was kind of moving into the corporate scene, we always got advised, if you're gonna poo-poo something, tell me what the better alternative would be. Right? Come with a solution, and not that you're obligated to, but it's kind of like I'm just kind of telling you a little bit about me, and then maybe that way, because if you give me a problem, I will try to solve it, but it doesn't mean I'm going to do the right way, right?
Cool.
So like I mentioned, Hat Chat will continue, but Hat Chat will be more like the interactions that you see, like with me and Paul. Paul came on as a special guest initially. We had a talk about his hats. And it will continue to be Hat Chat when I invite somebody like Paul, or Paul comes on and says, hey, you know what? I want to come on, Luke. And then the nice thing is that Hat Chat won't need to be at 11 a.m. Eastern, right? Because it's going to be a format for me to invite guests. We know that we're going to have guests coming from around the world. We usually, the nice thing is that there's almost always, no matter where you're at in time, a kind of a slot that two people at least can get on and agree to get on. So I want to have that flexibility while also keeping that continuity with Hat Chat, right? Because I feel like Hat Chat's a good name. So it's a good brand or sub brand of Good Lukes. But there's two more additions that I want to add, right? And then again, Hat Chat can happen anytime, any day, and it will continue on. So the next Hat Chat will probably be, well, whenever I get another guest, maybe whenever Paul comes back on, or whenever I can get Kevin on. There's a few other folks that I've already reached out to, and if I can get them back on, that will be the Hat Chat series. But the next series will be probably similar and a little bit more open in format, maybe a little similar to how I kind of started the series. Maybe what I'll do is I will either choose one of my hats, but I can also bring somebody to talk about a specific hat. And then I will call that Hat Tuesdays. It will happen on Tuesdays every week, and it will be Hat Tuesdays. And I'll continue that. And hopefully, you know, and again, I'm not married to the idea, like my initial idea, but I do like the idea of having a series called Hat Tuesdays. And I will try to carry that, and it'll be weekly. So I'll have a little bit more time to prepare in case I can't get something happening organically. So we will have Hat Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Eastern, you know, every Tuesday for as long as I decide that's a good idea. You know, it may be a terrible idea. Who knows, you know? But what do you guys think about that, right, initially?
I think it sounds great. I mean, I think anything that gets people talking about hats is a good thing. I think sitting here as a you know, part-time hatter, I would say that it would be great to get more information from potential clients. So all of your members of your channel and people that watch this, they probably have bought a hat at one time or another. People like myself would like to improve our experience for you. I mentioned that I make videos of the process I go through to make a hat for somebody when I'm doing a custom hat, and send that off to them, which has gone down well. We mentioned, I think it was the last time I was on, about the canvas bag, and actually I've been researching and I've found some canvas bags. I'm just getting some samples in. So as a result of this show and the conversations we've had, probably in the next couple of months, because it will take that time just to develop it, there'll be like a tote canvas bag that will come out with my branding on, that with every hat, so that when you're not wearing your hat, the tote bag can go in your back pocket or your jacket pocket, and then you can put your hat in there when you get into a restaurant or a public house or whatever it might be, you know?
Yeah. So hey, that's a good Luke's first, Paul. So what you happen to see, if you guys have been rocking with the show, you saw that Paul introduced that idea, I believe, on the very last show. At least he pitched the idea. I think we both, me and Ian, at least, I think it was me and Ian, and we said, hey, that's a great idea. And now Paul's going to officially make it, you know, an addition. I want that, you know, and again, maybe Paul, I think Paul already had the idea and he pitched it there. It's not like we're taking credit for it, but I want that to be one of the things that can happen here, right? So either on Hat Chat in its future format, excuse me, or Hat Chat, Hat Tuesdays, right? Because the idea behind Hat Tuesdays will be to profile a hat, maybe a hat, and it could be my hat, it could be a viewer's hat, some kind of hat that we feel is kind of like, hey, you know what? This is going to be the jumping off point. It doesn't have to. We don't have to stick with that hat. We can start with that hat, and maybe it'll lead to some other organic discussion about hats in general or hat-related topic.
I mean, the other thing, of course, is you know, you're looking at it from a user's point of view, but there's also the suppliers. You know, it might be nice to get maybe Fern Thatcher, I think it was, I mentioned, that I dealt with up in America, that provide the sweatbands. Yeah, they might come on and talk about the different qualities of leather, why they use the different widths, and also, you know, to get feedback from ourselves as users as to what we would really like, you know, like the Rowan type expensive you know, sweatbands, you know, could they make those? And likewise with people that make felts, it would be great to find out, you know, I'd love to find out more information about the felt manufacturing and also about the different weights. I think I know quite a bit about that, but I mean, as consumers, I think it would really widen people's appreciation of the hat business, because every day, and in fact, it happened again today, somebody came on from seeing one of my hats and said, can you make that in so-and-so size? And then I'm now trying to convince them to come on to a Zoom call to actually go through the sort of 20 or 30 questions that I have about the specification for the hat.
Yeah.
And people don't don't see that there's, how can there be 20 or 30 questions about a hat? It's a hat, but of course there are, if you want me to do it properly to your specification with no disappointments, and in fact, far from it, elation from the fact that you've actually contributed to the makeup of that hat. Spend some time with me,
Yeah. And Paul, I hope I'm not being presumptuous here, but what you just stated, it initiated an idea in my head that I'd like to at least, I mean, obviously you're welcome to do it here, but I feel like this is more appropriate for your channel. If you had a client, right, that was didn't mind you recording your interaction, meaning your Zoom call, you could actually post that on your web. I think Pete, I know I'm fascinated by that. That's something that I would like to see Paul in action dealing with the client in real time. Right? It doesn't have to be live. It could be pre-recorded, so you can edit it if you like. But I wouldn't mind live, only because, right? Obviously, some clients will never approve that. They'd be too shy. They wouldn't want their business out there. But there might be some that would be amenable.
Yeah, I think maybe it'd be possible if I record it, edit it, and then show them before it actually goes live. It's a bit like when I make the hat for somebody, I usually make two versions of the video, one that's specific to them and mentions their name, and one that I'll put up on YouTube that doesn't mention their name. It just mentions that they're another client. It's just to be, some people don't like to be highlighted that they've bought something from a particular source or whatever,
Right.
But thanks. That's a great idea. I'll work on that one.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm going to offer myself up as a guinea pig, given that we are working technically on a hat together, right? So if you'd like to test that out with me, I just let me know what you'd like how, your vision, right? Obviously, once we get off this live stream, you'll have a little time to kind of work it out. And then whenever you're ready, I will be all ears, and I will try to assist you in any way possible.
Let's do that. I'm just trying to get the orange the trim that we talked about.
Awesome. Yeah, I know
we were going to go through that together before we. Yeah, so sorry. Anyway,
no worries.
I'm just working on that.
Anyway, no, it's okay. I mentioned that before. I was like, you know what? Paul is very, like I trust Paul wholeheartedly. Like when Paul is ready, we will continue the process. So yeah, I'll just wait. I'll leave that in your court, my friend.
Okay, I'll reach out. Thank you, Luke.
No problem. Yeah, that was great. So, I mean, just for completion's sake, all right. So we talked about the future of Hat Chat. We talked about the future of, right, tomorrow will probably be the very first Hat Tuesday, right? So I'll start off with Hat Tuesday #1 tomorrow, and that'll continue every Tuesday. And then obviously when Paul comes on next, like obviously, Paul, you can come on Hat Tuesday as well, no matter what. You don't have to announce yourself just like we did today. But if there's a specific topic or a special show that you want to do, obviously I will put that into Hat Chat, and that'll continue that series. And then the third, right? Because I'm a person. And I mentioned this before. I think in threes a lot, right? There's a small, medium, and large. It's a very, very well-known rule. And then the third I have to give credit to my man Ian, right? Hopefully Ian is still on. I know he might have. I haven't seen him comment in a little bit, but Ian and I, and if you haven't noticed, Paul, we're very big fans of film, and I'm pretty sure I can include you safely because I've seen your website. I've seen your nod to Borsellino. Great, both movies I enjoyed. So if you haven't seen Borsellino, see it, or you can tune in on Friday where we will start Fedora Fridays. And in Fedora Fridays, we'll focus on all things pop culture when it comes to hats, either films, right? Because obviously I'm a film buff, so is Ian. And obviously I'm going to include Paul in there. And we're going to talk about all things pop culture, like film, celebrities, right? We talked about Johnny Depp several times here. We've made a mention of folks like Run DMC, Nicolas Cage. There's so many celebrities and actors, musicians as well, that are synonymous and like are helping to move, and they're part of the hat culture. And I feel like we have enough material there to sustain a weekly show. So what I will do is maybe I will start off with picking up, a couple ones at least. I'll take a little bit of the lead on that. But with all the series, with the Hat Chat, Hat Tuesdays, as well as Fedora Fridays, I'm going to count on you guys, besides my board members, right? They're always giving me ideas, but I'll count on you guys, the viewers, to let me know, hey, Luke, on the next Fedora Friday, can you talk about XYZ or somebody? And I want that to happen because I want, if there's one theme here that you can take out of my channel, is that I want it to be very interactive, right? I don't want it to be me, because again, whether I'm boring or not, I can't sustain a whole like daily hat like series and not have you guys get bored of me and or also bored of my collection, right? So I want that to happen, and I feel like that was the best thing that came out of that walk today. Besides seeing some of my neighbors, is that again, it helps me think, it helps me get a little bit of clarity. I don't know what happened to my lighting here. I guess my lighting went and gave out. Give me 1 second while I see if I can get my light back on, my key light, and let's see if that hopefully that, I don't know what happened there, but I'm gonna blame ghosts. It felt like my key light went out, but maybe it didn't. Maybe it was always off. Anyway, hopefully that's a little better. I don't know what happened, but yeah, that's gonna be the future of the Good Luke's channel. You will still get Hat Chat. You will now get, in addition to Hat Chat, Hat Tuesdays and Fedora Fridays. And I feel like that's a sustainable format, at least for the interim. That's all I have to say about that. I mean, I'm hoping that
excited by the film one. I think what would be great is if you actually published or make known in a week or so before the actual session you're doing, so that the people that are actually looking at your videos have got time just to put their thoughts together, because it'd be lovely to have other people on here. I feel as though I'm monopolizing the channel at the moment, which I'm really trying to come on here because I want this to be a success for you, and it's enjoyable, and if we can get people on here with little nuggets of interesting information. I mean, many years ago, I had a business that we made I had some garage businesses, and we made cars for Pinewood Studios, which is part of the setup for Hollywood and what have you, based here in the UK. And I'm waiting to sort of get my hat business a little bit more established, and then I'll go and have a chat with them about how I can get involved with becoming on their supplier list for making hats for the films.
Fantastic.
There are people like obviously Lock & Co do quite a lot, and Herbert Johnson, of course, did the Raiders of the Lost Ark, and they've built a whole part of their business. They're part of the Swain Aidney Brigg collective of companies now, and they've got a shop in Burlington Arcade that's got the whole range of the Raiders of the Lost Ark fedoras in there, and it's great just to go and have a look in the window, let alone go inside. But it's things like that. If people have got stories of when they've been fitted out for their Raiders hat from Herbert Johnson, and how they go through the sales process there, because from what I can see on Facebook, people really enjoy their interaction when they're getting that hat, whether it's for their collection or whether it's for a bit of cosplay or whatever else they do. I don't know, but the nice thing is that they're very enthusiastic about the hat.
No, that sounds great. What you got me thinking about is this actually also, I mean, I'm probably stating the obvious here, but this will also allow you to get some ideas in terms of future models, right? So it's kind of like we talked about, like the movie King of New York. I mean, I'm thinking about that because that might be the first movie, right? So I'm just gonna put that out there, because it's kind of like movie of the week, right? Maybe what will happen is everybody makes it a point to try to watch the movie, or at least rewatch it if you've already seen it, or just prepare notes, that what you want to like point out about that movie. I feel like King of New York might be a good one. Obviously, Road to Perdition is another one, right? Those are my two tops, right? And then I'll throw a third, right? Because I'm big on the rule of threes. We can also throw in the original Godfather or Godfather Part 2. So I will kind of let what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that out there in terms of 3 options. And then obviously after the live stream or during the live stream, if somebody decides that they want to put in their 2 cents, we'll get live reactions. And then I will, as I will tend to do, I will defer to my board later on, and maybe I'll send an update somehow. That way, everybody, the viewers can know. I could use maybe I'll do a Facebook post or something, something that will let viewers know. The nice thing is that we're so small right now that it's not a whole lot of moving parts, right? So yeah, I'm really excited by that. I feel like that's got legs, and like I said, I'm not going to try to set it in stone. Nothing on this channel is set in stone. I will have to take liberties on shifting things because some things will work, some things won't, and then obviously we'll evolve.
I guess I've heard. I think my wife's been part of things like book clubs where they come up with a particular book. The people that are members read the book and then they discuss the book and the content. And I guess that's similar to this. You're giving us a film. We rush out onto Netflix or wherever, watch the film, and then discuss the hat content. Oh, great! Why not?
Yeah, I love it. Like I said, and now that I heard that feedback, like I'm feeling even better about it. And again, somebody like I'm going to make sure that I don't want to hear just good news, right? Somebody really has genuine feedback. They can provide that. Like I said, that goes from not just from my board, but also for my viewers. If there's something that you're like, you know what, this is how it could be better, or this thing you need to scrap it. Like I said, nobody wants to hear that. And the nice thing is if it's something where it's divisive, you don't have to tune in on Fridays, right? You guys can go and say, you know what, I don't want to hear anything about film hats. And maybe one of the other series is what is for you. So we'll see how it lives. Like I've said before. Yeah, I'm really excited by that.
Good. Yeah.
So yeah, any other hat news, Paul?
I'll finish this one, which is nice. I'm pleased with it. So that's sort of replaced a hat that I made for myself, and then a gentleman came along and wanted to buy it, which I was pleased to do, and it just took me a little while to get around to buying another felt to do one for myself. It's a bit like when you get a painter and decorator in to do your house. And they always, if ever you go around to pay them to their house or something, their house is never painted. It's never up together, and it's because they never get the time. And it's the same thing with hatters. You end up thinking, oh yeah, I've got to get up and make that a hat for me. I'm really attracted to that design, and so you start playing around with that, and then you've got 50 different types of ribbon you can put with it, with different sizes and colors and all the rest of it, and then you make it, and then you of course you put it up on your website. And then somebody comes along and buys it, and you think, "Oh, okay," which is great because it's what you really want to do. But it's sometimes it sort of deflates you when you've spent so much time sort of researching it and then doing it.
Yeah. Well, what's great about that, Paul, when I hear that is that there's a couple things that I think, right? So it's very analogous to when somebody compliments my hat and wants to buy it from me, right? So, again, I mentioned I'm not really a hat seller. I have sold hats, but usually the process is, right? Every once in a while I will sell a hat formally and I'll put it up for sale. But most times that I've sold a hat successfully, it's been somebody that's seen that hat. Like they seen me on Facebook, and they'll reach out. They'll friend request me, or they'll just send me a message and I'll accept. And they'll just start off with, "Hey, Luke, great hat collection. Do you sell hats?" Right? I'm like, whoa, I don't know. It depends on who, what day, how I answered that. But yes, I do. I mean, what can I help you with? And then they're like, "Well, how much would you sell it for?" And then I'll always kind of say, "Well, you let me know how much you're interested in buying it." And obviously the interaction, sometimes I'm creating it in real time. I'm like, okay, they want to offer this, is as long as it's reasonable and I'm not like, taking a bath, I will make the deal because I'm touched, right? It's kind of like I want to make the deal happen because Well, this is another person that essentially saw what I saw, right? When I purchased the hat, and maybe they're even more excited. So that gets me excited. I'm like, this is probably a better home for it. So, all right, here you go.
Yeah.
And then when you, Paul, like you just said, I created that hat for myself. So as a buyer, I'm like, wow, Paul created this to put on his own head. So you kind of have that bias and say, okay, Paul, this is Paul's hat. So he went and like he did it right. He did like that extra. Not that you wouldn't do any other hats right, but you know what I mean. I think we as a buyer, we have that bias. Like if that's Paul's hat and it's good enough for him, I want that, like especially.
Yeah.
So,
and one of the other things, of course, we're leading up towards Christmas, and you were talking about some other ideas on our chat about hitting a certain number of shows and what have you. You could put together some form of competition for people to design a hat and then get one of the hatters. I'm not putting this up for myself, but hopefully there'll be more that you get on the show. We can collectively or whatever make the hat, and they can decide which one they want. It's
I like that.
That's an idea. I mean, I guess most people haven't sat down with their crayons and paper and put a hat design together before.
Yeah, I love that. So that brought two thoughts into my mind, Paul. One is that the Fedora Lounge has like the I forgot how many days of stinginess, right? Or, stingy brim, meaning so they've come up with a tradition of stinginess where as you get approach Christmas time, the forum members will break out their stingy brim hat. And they'll have the X days of stinginess. And it's really just another excuse for you to share a hat that maybe you otherwise wouldn't, right? So even though I especially favor the stingy brim, a lot of other forum members, they kind of prefer like the bigger brims. And what happens is they've recognized that pattern and they wanted to have a celebration of the stingy brim. That's something we could do similar. I don't want to steal like an idea from the Fedora Lounge. So that's something that we can include, right? But also give credit to the Fedora Lounge. But the other one is, everybody knows is familiar with the White Elephant Exchange, right? Is that something that they have in the UK? So White Elephant is kind of it's kind of like a gift exchange, right? Where somebody, and sometimes there's like it becomes like a gag. They limit it to gag gifts, right? You get something really like a really bad present, but I don't want it to be that, right? I'd like to have a hat that I'm trying to give away this hat, right? After 100 subscribers, maybe what would happen, right? If I didn't give this away, during the Christmas time, I could go and say, okay, this hat is something that I don't wear a whole lot. Maybe somebody else would love it. And then maybe I'll pick somebody, a subscriber or an audience member, and say, hey, you do that. But the idea is also if they have a collection that they would like to pay forward, right? Maybe they could in exchange, right? I gift them this hat. They could gift somebody else. It doesn't have to be somebody that's a member. They can gift anybody. But I kind of like if we had a lot of members here and a lot of engagement, I kind of like to keep it within the Good Luke's channel, or maybe extend it out to the Paul's channel or whoever else is kind of like an affiliate, right? I'm gonna just use that term for lack of a better term. That way there's enough membership to kind of make that to fruition. And it's also kind of like that in keeping to that spirit of generosity, right? We mentioned about money is not the root of all evil. You can, when you have a couple extra bucks, you can get a much larger hat collection. And we know that if you like to wear your hats, there's certain hats you don't wear as often. And you know what? Somebody else would like this hat better than me. So what do you think of that idea, Paul?
No, I think it's great. I think, it'd be good to talk at some stage about offering. I'd like to either, give forward or give to charity and what have you. And just maybe there's an opportunity to make a hat for somebody and then say, well, look, when you get the hat, you pay whatever you feel the hat's worth and give it to charity. And just let us know which charity you've supported. I don't know, but it's, there's in the UK, we're getting a few people that I'm sure you do as well that now got cancer spots on their heads. So, you know, and they're not older people; they're quite younger. And I'm thinking, well, okay, maybe that's a worthy cause to explore. I don't know, but
I
it's
like that, Paul. I like that a lot. I think that one is definitely. I think you really onto something there in terms of getting hats in the hands of those. Again, your story really is. I think a lot of folks can relate to that story. But again, what we do know is that a lot of folks they don't have the funds to maybe own a fine hat. They might get a hat that they're like not so proud of. But if we can put a fine hat in the hands of somebody that could really use it because they're dealing with a medical issue proactively and obviously reactively, right? I think that's great. I mean, I definitely want to be part of that.
Wow. So we'll have a chat and see what we can do about that. Yeah.
I love that. I love that idea. Wow. All right. Well, there you go, guys. Obviously, this has been an exchange within me and Paul. You guys, whoever happens to listen to this, don't just let me and Paul dominate. You guys, if you guys have heard any of this conversation, feel free to chime in. Again, good, bad, or indifferent. It's worthy of hearing the discussion because, again, I'm trying to make sure I take this I take this channel in a direction that is just not good for me, but it's good for the entire community that I hope to build here. Even if that community is tiny, again, has nothing to do with like becoming some kind of Uber channel here. I am just fine sticking around with 50 subscribers if that's where I top out at. But you know what?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thing, subscribers, isn't it? Because look, as I said to you before, I'm into my mid going into my late 60s. Never thought in a million years I'd be sat in front of a camera. Least of all did I think I'd have a YouTube channel. But you know, within 12 months, I've got nearly 360, 370 subscribers, and I'm hoping by the end of the year it might be 500. Well, you know, 500 people following my work. Well, I mean, you know, that's lovely to think that people are getting benefit from looking at some of the hints and tips and some of the explanations that I give, and also some of the reviews of the hats and things that I do. You know, it's just my view. I mean, they're not saying that they're correct or incorrect, but it's just if you're getting into hatting, I found a lot of the videos like the Hornskoff and the Hufford videos brilliant, absolutely great.
Yeah.
But there's no real narrative to it. They're relatively short, but great content. And I just really wanted to myself. I'm slightly different in so much as I want to do more of the real world things that you do. And sometimes, you know, I can remember on one of my videos, I was this cross grain. When you've put it on there, when you sewn it on there, you use steam to actually make it shrink onto the felt, so you don't have any gaps around the top.
Yeah.
And I'd forgotten I'd filled up my steamer. And when you fill up your steamer and you heat up for the first time, when it gets up to temperature and you put the button on, sometimes it jets out water. And so you have to have it near a bowl or something so you can catch that water. I forgot about it. So live on air, I soaked the hat. And of course, if you get water on the gross grain, it can be a real, well, it can leave a bit of a stain or a watermark there. So it's a bit unfortunate that happens. But, you know, things go wrong.
Yeah, and well, the nice thing is that obviously you guys, Paul, that's probably when you hear like a couple fine expletives from Paul. Maybe you'll catch that live, right? But I think that people really gravitate towards authenticity, right? I think we are kind of spoiled by a lot of the polish that exists on YouTube. And I think there's a real genuine craving for authenticity and like the blooper reel, right? Everybody knows about the blooper reel. That becomes a show, right? Everybody knows those shows that just focus on bloopers because it can't all be high production value and, you know, perfect lighting and all this other stuff. There's a time and place for that, right? I love cinematography and I love a beautiful shot, but at the same time, I also have room to admire things when they don't go as planned, right? Like Bob Ross would call them happy accidents, right?
I mean, Bob Ross, most of us don't have expensive equipment. You know, most of mine is done on my iPhone or I've got a Nikon camera. But you know, the main thing really is we don't go out and buy you know, thousands of pounds worth of lighting and equipment and so on. We just do the rough and ready stuff, but it's the information that's on there that's what you're looking at and listening to, rather than the production quality. And it's certainly not looking at me, that's for sure.
Exactly. You're not coming here, you know. I'm called Good Luke's, but again, that's more kind of in a way kind of comical as well, right? It's a play on my name. It's a play on a couple things, right? Speaking of which, that was another thing about that name, because growing up in New York City, you know, obviously we use a lot of slang, and then when somebody would do you a favor, they say good Luke, good look, right? Or good looking out, you know, right? Good looking out, right? Meaning good looking out for me, good looking out. And then it became just good look. Somebody will say, hey, good look. And then I just reminded me of that name. So I kind of played on the several levels. So that, you know, in case you were wondering why I gave that name, you know, for obviously my name is Luke. So yeah, that.
Cool.
So yeah, a little bit tidbit. I know Ian's learned a lot of, he mentioned before, he's learning a lot about the Hispanic kind of Latino culture from watching my channel. And that is something that I intended right when I created the channel, but it's just a natural byproduct of you getting to know the characters behind everybody that's on this channel. Everybody's just always curious. Like, I wonder what he does, right? I wonder what he does before the stream. I wonder what he does after he's hit that button and said, you know, ciao. You know, just anyway. I usually eat. That's the one thing I mentioned the other day, because I've gotten back into besides my walk, into intermittent fasting. Those two things, and also a keto diet, which cuts down on the carbs, right? I've gotten back to that, not because I want to lose a ton of weight anymore, although there's a couple extra pounds that I regained that I want to kind of get off. But so usually, unless I've like given up, right, and I broke my fast, usually I will break my fast shortly thereafter after I hit the end stream. So just in case you were curious about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've got into a bit of a I suppose it's a regular thing now. You know, my wife and I go and play golf in the morning. If the weather's up to it, we'll be at the golf course. Sometimes as early as 6:30 in the morning. But we'll then Ian does some fasts as well. Yeah. So I'll go up to the golf course and do a round of golf, come back, and then do my formal work for my various businesses in the morning, and then have an hour where I spend having lunch with my wife on that, and we'll catch up on the news and so on, and then do a little bit of formal work in the afternoon. But quite honestly, I look forward to my hat time, and my hat time really is from about 3 o'clock onwards, unless I've got client meetings. But most of the time, I try not to have client meetings, and that way I'm able to get maybe a hat made every 3 days, you know, or 2 days if I need to. You know, and it also gives me a chance to, you know, think about the business and running the business, and you know, the website and all the sort of advertising and things that's needed, and doing things like this. I mean, this is really great, you know, to be able to come on somewhere and just sort of share thoughts and ideas, and you know, interact with Ian and Morgan and others. I mean, great. I mean, and long may it continue. I think the more people that come on and they just, you know, make the time, and it is difficult. I mean, over this side of the day, you know, it's what time is it now? It's 4 to 5 now in the afternoon. So most people, if they've got a formal job, then they're likely to be working through to about 5 o'clock. So it is difficult for them to come on the show. I get that, but it's such a shame, because it would be fun to have a few more people on.
Yeah, agreed. And that's why, like I said, you know, for that, because obviously my 9 to 5 job, I work remotely, I work from home. So usually the 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is when I kind of formally check out and I take my break, right? When I'm doing this during the work week. So that, I don't know how much flexibility I would have, right? Because I have to kind of, you know, it hasn't happened yet, but there could be a circumstance where I hear my work calling and I have to take the call, and I have to I'll have to deal with that. Luckily, my day to day is like, I kind of know what tasks and deliverables I have done, and I can pick and spot my spots. But every once in a while, somebody will have an emergency and they need to get on the horn with me, and then I'll have to kind of just tend to that. Obviously, I want to stay employed.
Yeah.
But yeah, the nice thing is that I get to do that. And if you're not able to join me, the beautiful part about live streaming is, like I mentioned, I call it syndication. You can catch me in syndication right after my live stream, and YouTube will start processing the video, and then they'll put the final version up there. That way you can watch, good Lukes at your leisure. So,
well, it depends how long the whole Ian's retired already. Now he's sharing it. I don't know. Good for you,
I kind of I didn't want to pry, but I'm thank you for
from you then. Yeah, but I've got the great smell of paint, because I told you last week we were actually doing some decorating, ready to move and so on. And part of the reason for the move is that I need more space for my hatting, but that then gives me the opportunity to share with you and your viewers and my viewers my journey, if you like, to building a new office in the garden, and actually production area in the garden, and a studio to actually so a whole showroom, studio, production area. Hopefully the garden will be big enough for it. But I'm hoping that this is a journey that will start. Well, we are starting now, but it's going to take quite a while, I'm sure, to sell the house and buy another one and find where we're going to put the rooms. But that will be a nice thing, because I'm hoping then that I'll have enough space to have a better filming studio, if you like, to be able to show people, a bit like these cookery programs where they're actually cooking. I'd like to stand in front of the screen and just take people through the different stages, and have interactive stuff going on and so on.
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. I think that's great. And essentially, and that just got me thinking in terms of, like I said, that just seems like an authentic, real scenario. And I think that just will stand out, right? So obviously we know we're all kind of tied to Kevin. Kevin he typically doesn't live stream, as far as my recollection and my scene of his channel. He usually has prepared videos, and those are great. But even within those videos, sometimes he'll be steaming a hat, preparing a hat for a customer. So even if it's not live, it's kind of, I think that's the draw, is that they see him working in real time, or at least in somewhat real time. I don't think Kevin does a lot of editing to his video, so it looks very real and very raw. And I feel like that's what makes, I think that was what would make a channel stand out, right? And it's a nice compliment to some of the more polished YouTubers out there. But yeah, Ian, I'm jealous. And the nice thing is, that's the great thing about, like, we're all kind of at various stages in our life journeys, right? I think that for the youth, right, we've always talked and came back to the fact that we want to be aspirational, right? For those budding hat nerds, and I think it's really good to see us and see what we're doing. And if they can pick up, besides hat tips, but maybe some life tips, right? You don't get to be as old as we've gotten. Not to put us we're not ancient, but we have lived a few years. Collectively, we got a pretty good amount of years between us. You don't get to live that long and not pick up a couple things or two. And if we can kind of assist somebody else besides their hat journey in their life journey, why not, right? Why not? Ian says, although it doesn't make much difference to musician. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. But basically, Ian, you're living the dream, at least the way I see it, right? You probably, I don't know if what you did prior to your besides being a musician, but whatever your previous career that you retired from was, you're still doing what you love, right? So now that career allowed you to dedicate maybe more time without money being as big of a factor. I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think that's the kind of thing I want somebody like Morgan, who's 19, and to see. That's kind of the, at least for me, if you ask me, Luke, that's my dream. And I feel like a lot of people would agree with that. But, that's...
I mean, it's really, really fantastic to see somebody like Morgan at 19 making an investment in some of the hats that they're buying. And these are some pretty pretty hot brands that she's buying, and
Oh yeah.
fantastic. I mean, you know, just fantastic to be able to do that.
Completely agree, Paul. That's it still blows my mind just thinking about that. You know, she's so far ahead, I think, of obviously probably for a lot of folks. So you kind of want to see what like that trajectory. Like, so me, as even though I'm good Luke's, I want to see what Morgan's journey is. You know, hopefully I get another 20 years on this planet, and I can see Morgan, let's say Morgan at 40. And where she's at, and hopefully we'll be instrumental in that, right? It's just how it is.
Yeah, it's cool.
And Ian was an electronics engineer. Wow, holy cow, Ian, that's very impressive. You know, that sounds like something where given that we keep talking about our tech setups and things like that, I have besides being such a great well, just a consistent viewer and having such great input, Ian, you know, the fact that your profession was electronics and engineer, and I already seen more benefits coming down the road. So you're fascinating, Ian. I'm really impressed by everything you've contributed to so far, and everything that I know you will contribute in the future. So thank you, Ian. I appreciate it. Wow. Yeah, I'm really excited. You know, obviously, you know, I'm in my post caffeination, but I'm still feeling a little caffeinated just on the idea of what we've already exchanged, the possibilities of what could be, right? And you know what? That's really what it's all about, right? Like the fun. Everybody always talks about, like, there's that cliche of, oh man, when I was in high school, those were the days, or college. When you saw me in college, I was really living it up. And I'm like, well, why can't you live it up now? I mean, you don't have to go and maybe drink yourself into a coma like you might have done back in the day, but you can still have fun, right? There's still avenues for you not to do those silly things that we kind of like talk about with just kind of like a little bit of amazement and maybe a little embarrassment. But you can still have fun, you know, when you're 50, 60, 70 years old. And beyond, right? We talked about Uncle Dom yesterday. He's 97, and Uncle Dom doesn't get around very much, but he still, you know, he used to sell insurance. I don't know if you guys were around. I know Ian was around when I talked about Uncle Dom, and he's living in a nursing home. He's a member of the family, and so he sold insurance for 30 plus years. That was his career. He put his son through medical school with that career, and he still has some of those mannerisms of an insurance salesman. So, you know, when we go and visit him, and he always say, "You guys are my best customers," you know. So he has those little things that you kind of know that was like ingrained from selling insurance, and it's still every bit as personable, even though we know he no longer sells insurance. You know, he saw my Stetson bowler, that one for the 1930s, and he had to remark, "Hey, Luke, you know, how many payments you got left on the hat?" I just laughed. Like he's like, maybe you let me borrow it one day and make some pasta. So he still got it, man. Uncle Dom still has 97 years old, a little bit of dementia, but the man still has the ability to turn up the charm. And that's what I could only hope to be 97 one day, but to have half that charisma. And that it just heartens me that that's still possible. And you know, and I'm sure there's many other people that are even beyond his age that are still doing it and having fun, no matter what situation you're in, and what you're at in life. There's still ways to squeeze more fun out of it. You just have to go and you have to demand it from yourself. You have to demand it from life and say, you know what, I'm gonna have fun, right? I'm gonna make it happen, right? Be in charge and be the pilot of your journey, because nobody else is going to do it for you. I'm sorry, but you might disagree, but I feel like with this group that I have here right now that are listening to me, I feel like there's going to be a lot more nodding there in that respect.
Well, I'm going to have to hit the road for today, Luke, but it's great as always. And I'm not sure what I'm doing tomorrow, but if I'm around, then I'd love to join you. And Ian, if you're around, that would be great too. And yeah.
Inaugural Hat Tuesday tomorrow.
Inaugural Hat Tuesday. Yeah. All righty.
Paul, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Paul from Passion for Hats. And PJ Murphy and Son, British Bespoke Hatter, has graced us again. Paul, you're always welcome. I'm always going to mention that. You kind of already know that. I'll keep that broken record, but I just want to make sure with no obligation. And Paul, you have yourself a fantastic day, my friend.
Lovely. Thank you. You too. And you, Ian. Cheers, mate. Bye.
All right. Excellent. Wow, guys. Again, besides Ian, Paul is a kind of said one of my inner circle. Has become one of my inner circle, and I'm proud. And hopefully, I'm not being presumptuous in calling him a friend. Again, I'm touched by the fact that Paul, like he has a lot going on. Ian, regardless of whether you might like say that you're retired, I know that you're a musician, and you still got stuff going on, but you guys still find it and like say, you know what, it's 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time coming up. Let me go and see what this jerk's going to talk about today. I'm touched. Like I said, I can't help it but be touched by that. It's one of those things that's not lost on me. So just FYI, if you ever curious, like I do realize that's a big deal. So we talked a lot about the direction the channel is going to take. Again, I'm gonna shout out Morgan, Paul, and Ian, especially Ian for that last Fedora Fridays. Might have not happened unless Ian went and shared his suggestion. Remember, and I think he was on live stream when he made that suggestion. Maybe they would have happened eventually. Maybe I would have come up with the idea eventually, but Ian expedited that by basically interacting with me. And I said, whoa, that's a fantastic idea. I can't afford not to do that idea, right? It's so good. Like, we both love movies. And like, even if it's just me and Ian and maybe Paul here talking about movies, right? Maybe nobody else cares about it. That's good enough for me. I'll be honest. It's just one of those things I'm gonna have to take liberties as the one that runs the channel and makes the final decision. As long as my board agrees and we have kind of we're kind of in the same page, I'm gonna keep doing that. And obviously, that board could grow. Kevin Gerber is I put him in the chat. Kevin's got his own channel. He's a busy man, but if he has a suggestion, it's going to carry a lot of weight because, again, I have a lot of respect for Kevin and his background and his ideas. So definitely gonna keep evolving that group chat, right? So there might be a few board members. Eventually, we'll if we keep growing, I can't have like 1 million people on one group chat, but this core, I feel like this core that I have right now is gonna stick. Is gonna stick for a while. I just feel like I really need it. One, to keep this channel grounded in really good, fresh ideas. And again, it's all to kind of further the overall mission statement, right? Is to become a channel where we talk about hats, but maybe we don't stick to just hats, right? We want to talk about your hat journey, your career journey, and your overall life journey. And it's going to be very much like Cheers, right? Remember the good old adage of Cheers, where everybody knows your name and they're always glad you came. Again, shout out to Cheers. It's a great show. If you never caught the show, I recommend it. It's again, it's based in a Boston pub. So it's just, you can imagine, right? A whole TV show that kind of takes place more or less around the pub and the regulars that go to a pub. It just sounds like it's a great idea, right? And it was. It was I believe there was like 11 seasons. Maybe I messed that up. 7 or 11. I feel like one of those is correct. But it's been on for a long time. Obviously not long on anymore. But those actors that they had on there, Ted Danson, George Wendt, John Ratzenberger, Woody Harrelson. I was going to say Woody Allen, but it's not Woody Allen. Woody Harrelson. Obviously, Woody Harrelson became a big movie star afterwards, and so did Ted Danson. That he got his start on Cheers, at least more or less he did. So shout out to Woody Harrelson, shout out to Ted Danson, shout out to the late great George Wendt, who just recently passed away. And Shelley Long, Rhea Perlman, Kirstie Alley, who's also passed away. I forgot what year she passed, but that was also pretty tragic. We lost her way too soon. And then Nick Castellano, who played Coach. Obviously, he was the first of that cast to pass away. And Woody Harrelson came aboard kind of to replace Coach and his character. Great show. I recommend it, even though it's really not like they are hats, right? There's actually a character on there called Harry the Hat, and he's a con man. Harry the Hat is a gentleman. I forgot his real name. It's Harry Anderson, I believe. And then in the show, he has a recurring character that doesn't come on all the time, but he comes on every once in a while, and he's a con man. And he like steals the show every time he comes on, right? Everybody knows they're gonna get swindled for money when the Harry the Hat comes in. So there's a couple hats in there, but for the most part, I love the spirit of the show and how these characters vibe. Like, you come to know these characters, and I want to create that too, right? And not just good Luke, right? Not just Luke the character, Paul the character, Ian the character, Morgan the character, and anybody else who happens to be a regular here on the channel. We want to recognize and celebrate, and I want to find out what's going on in your variety of your journeys, right? Because again, just like you're vested in me, I'm vested in you, right? You come on here and you spend your time with me. I just now have a vested interest in what's going on in your life. And I feel like others will feel the same, right? I feel like that's why people go around and go back to that pub, right? You might have a favorite pub that everybody knows you at, and you just feel safe. It's almost like a home away from home. And I want to create that vibe here, if at all possible. And it's up to you guys to help me make that happen. But I'm gonna have a lot of fun doing it. Like I promise you, at least Luke is gonna have a lot of fun. And maybe I'm hopeful that if I'm having fun, you guys will get some vicarious fun through it. Let me before I get too quick on this, I will go and share my screen as per usual. That way I don't forget. What I'm gonna do is actually start off with the picture that Paul sent us of his hat wall. Let's see if I can get that on here without breaking anything. Nope, it's button up with me, but I will go and be persistent. Again, if you recall, I've been having this issue a lot more lately. I'm guessing it's a StreamYard issue, but it could be a Luke issue. Doesn't matter. It seems to like always work out if I do it enough times. So I'll just keep doing it. So bear with me. We'll see how long it takes me to do this. Yep. It just always, I don't know why it says, it gives me a little error sign. It says your browser has blocked your screen. Click the screen icon on your address bar to allow access. Let me just do that and see if that does anything. Always allow. Okay. All right, let's see it. Let's keep trying. I'm just gonna keep trying until I guess it works. Oh, I think it worked. All right, so there. Hey. All right. Well, again, maybe there's something to that there. But you should see here, you should see a very, very ugly individual on screen here, and probably a very gaudy shirt. Sorry about my gaudy shirt, but this is probably one of my gaudier shirts. When I saw this shirt in a thrift store, I was like, you're coming home with me. Because you know what? Nobody else is probably going to buy you. It's kind of like a very floral, very ethnic looking shirt. But it kind of fits in with my bowling shirt style, right? It's just out there. It's one of those shirts that you want to wear with a black hat or a blue hat, a very like reserved hat that's not too look at me. Because this shirt, it's like very look at me. I talked about like that's kind of my style. But you can see that hat wall on that Paul has right there in the background. So this is what you're seeing. Hopefully, I don't know if I got formal permission from Paul to share this, but this is Paul's hat wall. And then at some point, I'll share my hat wall. I just don't have one yet, but maybe in the next few days, I'll start like putting my hats up, and you guys can see that. But yeah, great hat wall, Paul. Shout out to Paul, who's just on here with us. And yeah, by all means, great hat wall, man. Again, I'm a big fan of the hat wall. Obviously, I think Ian mentioned that he has all his hats in a hat box. That's probably safer, right? So if you want to, like, if you don't have too many hat boxes piling up, you can go and do what Ian does. It kind of helps out keep the moss out. But I know Paul, myself, Kevin Gerber, we're kind of big fans of the hat wall. And once you start getting a certain number of hats, you really do need a hat wall. Like, maybe that's what'll be. That'll kind of be my litmus test on how many hats I can get on this wall. And if I can't get a hat on this wall, then I'll have to get rid of a hat. That should be the very least, of my limiters here. And you can see Paul has these stacked up. Usually what I'll do is I'll try to keep a linear hat wall. So I'll choose the 6 foot mark, and I'll try to keep hats around the 6 foot mark around my whole office. And then every once in a while, I'll break that rule. I'll go, maybe I'll put a layer at the 7 foot level and maybe one at a lower level, and kind of do it that way. But I just don't want, my brain doesn't want to allow that to happen, only because I know that I do fashion myself a minimalist, right? So it's hard to kind of say I'm a minimalist when you have 30 plus hats, but I still do. So yeah, just want to make sure this is yeah. So you guys can see this is a photo from Paul Murphy of PJ Murphy and Son, and you can see his hat wall. Nice looking computer setup, by the way, Paul. You may not be on here, but maybe you'll see this later on. But great setup. I like the curved monitor, to be honest, too. So yeah, a little glimpse into the hat wall, right? This is the very first hat wall photo on this channel. So thank you, Paul, for contributing that. So there you go. And then, so, back to the hat of the day, I just want to kind of show, it's, again, very plain hat. It is a Dobbs Fedora. This color is a little bit different. I want to say it's just a standard brown, but it does have kind of a different hue to it. This one was one of those hats that I purchased that came pre-bitten, so it was one of those things where I try to avoid moth-bitten hats, but usually what happens is either I'll fail to notice it on the ad, or the photos were just that bad that I couldn't see the hat bites, or maybe, who knows? Some people like purposely hide that stuff. I don't know. I'm not going to just assume positive intent with all the sellers, in that they just didn't disclose that, and it was by mistake. Maybe they didn't notice it, but it was very obviously moth bitten, but not a whole lot. We're talking about one or two bites here and there, but they took a good chunk out of it. But yeah, here's the side profile. Again, I just thought it was a really fine looking stingy brim with a nice thick ribbon, right? You guys could start seeing that progression of Luke's hat journey. I didn't quite get into the whole, like, hey, I need brim binding, but this kind of does have like a little bit of a, of an edge, right? If you look at that brim, it's different, and I'll get to that, I think, in a second. Yeah, so again, this is the side profile. This is kind of my favorite. If I had to pick one shot of a hat, it's this, and I believe Morgan called it a splitting image of the hat. I never actually knew that that's what that was called. So Morgan, you taught me that. But I know she requested a splitting image from Paul, and I never heard that term. Again, this is why I'm here. I'm here to learn. So you let me know if I got that correct. But Morgan referred to it as a splitting image, and that's what I'll call it if that's the actual correct term. So yeah, so this profile is just, like I said, for me, it's the best. This is just a top profile. It's not anything crazy to look at. It's just a center bash. But again, center bashes are my thing, right? Like I start off, I mentioned this before. If I get an open crown hat, usually it won't stay open crown, unless I make like an exception. Usually I'll start off with that little karate chop, and then I'll see how the hat takes it, right? I'll dry bash and do a little dry bash center dent. And if it takes it well, I usually progress to like the 2 front dents, right? And this one happened to take a really good front dent. Remember I talked about the pliability of the felt. This just had a really good pliability in that, similar to my Borsalino, I just, basically use the 2 fingers, and with no steam at all, it just holds. And I really like that. You know what I mean? I don't know if there's like a trade-off, right? When that happens, obviously, a hat that can take a really good center dry bashing may not be as durable as a hat with a very thicker felt, right? Maybe with a thicker felt, you're going to need to steam it to be able to make that thing hold. But again, I just happen not to like need, in my collection, I don't really have a lot of felts that just are that thick. Or maybe I do, and I just haven't noticed it, right? I do have certain hats that don't take well to a dry bash. And then maybe at that point, I just decide I'm not going to have any dents in it, right? But usually a center bash is kind of like that first thing. Can it take a center bash and more or less hold? The nice thing about me is that I don't mind center bashing it and it being uneven. I know that we have a lot of variability. I do have some kind of OCD stuff in me, in compulsions when it comes to like my hats, but asymmetry is not one of them. I am okay with a little bit of asymmetry as long as it's not too far off, right? Little asymmetry has never hurt anybody, at least not me. So that's a little bit tidbit about me. And you can see like here the Dobbs logo, a little bit about the plastic hat tip liner that keeps recurring in a lot of my hats because, well, a lot of my hats come from the 50s and 60s. And that's really been the height of the plastic tip liner, right? So you can see the plastic tip liner here. Otherwise not a very remarkable, right? You can see the Dobbs logo, right? You can see the hat size. This happens to be a 7 1/8. As you recall, that kind of roughly equates to about 57 centimeters. So most of my hat collection is right around 57 to 58 centimeters because I think my head size kind of lives somewhere in between there. So I'm going to call it 57 and a half. I just find that most of my hats are of that and they fit okay. The 57s might be a little bit on the kind of slightly tight, but not tight enough that it's really worrisome and it affects my hat wearing. So yeah, you can see the Dobbs logo here. Again, for my vintage hat nerds or my budding vintage hat nerds, one thing you notice about this logo is that the Dobbs logo does not have the little R, right? And what that tells me is that this hat comes from an era prior. It's not a modern Dobbs, right? They're still, as far as I know, they still make Dobbs. But if you buy a modern Dobbs iteration, it'll probably have a little R here right next to the S, that registered trademark R. And that'll tell you that it's a little bit more of a modern, right? It could still be technically vintage, right? Vintage hats, I think, has to do with like hats that are older than, I say 20 to 25 years, right? It wasn't that long ago, right? You could still have a hat that's considered by a modern hat by some that was from the 90s, right? But technically vintage because, well, the 90s, right? 1990 was 1990 was 35 years ago, right? Definitely vintage in the spirit of that operational definition of 20 to 25 plus years. But somebody else will be like, no, to me that's modern because I only considered something from the 60s and older vintage. Who knows? Tomato, potato, I say, right? It's like whatever. If a hat's nice and I want it, I don't care whether it's vintage or not, to be honest. It might only come into play if the hat really doesn't have anything else going for it. And I just don't want to buy another hat, right? I'll make up some kind of excuse why I shouldn't buy the hat. And that's because to keep some extra coin in my pocket. But you shouldn't really care about whether it's vintage or not, unless you really, really, really happen to be a vintage like lover and like you like the history. Like I said, there's no wrong way to do this hobby. Like I said, as long as you don't like look down upon somebody's hat because it's not from a certain era, then you're fine with me. It's okay to have limits on and have themes. You just don't want to become like some sort of hat snob where if a hat's not from 1940 or older and you think it's crap, and then you actually go and have the gall to say that it's crap. It's just now we don't have any room for that here. So don't come here doing that. Not that you would, but I'm just saying, it's like if I don't take kindly to that, and neither will my moderators. My deputy here, Ian, will oust you in a hurry. So yeah, here this hat was made for Peller and Mure, who was a hat shop in Buffalo, New York. So upstate Buffalo to New York. Shout out to Buffalo. Buffalo is home of the Buffalo Wings, right? So I don't know if you guys in the UK kind of know about Buffalo Wings, but here in the US, everybody loves, and well, maybe not loves, but everybody knows about Buffalo Wings. They're kind of like, you can get Buffalo Wings everywhere, not just in Buffalo. And it's just kind of one of those known things, right? Kind of like, you know, French fries, like you, regardless of whether it's actually French or not, you know, you just know it's the name Buffalo Wings and French fries. So yeah, you guys call them chips, I believe, right? As in fish and chips. We also have fish and chips here. We also do that. I guess French fries are so good that we give them all sorts of names because we just, you know, we'll have an excuse. Oh, I'll have an order of French fries and chips. And you're like, all right, I guess I'm gonna get you 2 orders of the same thing. I also do love crinkle fries or chips. I also love steak cut, right? So like I could get a platter of like crinkle fries, steak cut fries, and also waffle fries. Chick-fil-A makes waffle fries. You guys can tell I'm getting hungry, right? I'm already gotten to food. Anyway, I'll stop. But you can see here, Peller and Mure was a hat shop in Buffalo. I believe they closed down. They're one of the few hat shops that closed down way later than a lot of the other ones that I profiled. I believe they closed in December of 1999. So shout out to Peller and Mure for holding out that long. A lot of hat shops can't claim the same. Usually by the 1970s, maybe the early 80s if they're lucky. But Peller and Mure was a hat shop that closed right around, I guess, right before Christmas in 1999, and it's just unfortunate that they couldn't. They made a lot of modifications to their strategy, and I showed you, like, if you look at my description, you'll find a direct quote from I believe it's called the Buffalo News, a local newspaper that announced the closing of Peller and Mure. And the authors of that article kind of just talk about like the 2 founders and just talk about a little bit about the shop itself. So I thought that might be useful. So I included that in the description. So feel free to check that out. We also here in this shot, you can see a little bit of the initials. Ian mentioned before, and I believe he's correct, that this is probably the initials, the 3-letter initials of the initial purchaser of the hat. Again, I always think it's a neat thing to have. You'll see that on the sweatband. And again, I feel like that's something that maybe one day it'll make a comeback, right? That might be something that Paul might be interested in at least exploring. I know that it's going to be a cost, right? Paul probably buys his sweatbands without me knowing. He probably buys his sweatbands in bulk, and it probably wouldn't be cost effective for him to get your initials placed. But maybe it will be. I don't know. Maybe that's something that Paul can think about, and maybe Kevin as well. When Kevin gets on here, maybe we can ask him about that. Have you thought about offering the ability to make your initials on the hat? I think it's a nice nod to the it'll be a nice hat tip to yesteryear, and I think a lot of people would like that. So shout out to all my hatters out there, especially the ones that offer that option already. And I'm curious as to how many folks are willing to pay, and how much will you be willing to pay extra, right? If there was an additional cost, right? So I'm doing a little bit of market research here for Paul and for Kevin. How much would you pay to have that option, right? I feel like there's got to be a price, a sweet spot where somebody would be like, you know what? If it costs this amount, I'd be willing to pay extra for that. So yeah, that's just again, that's a question for Paul and for Kevin and whatever other hatters happen to watch this video, and see if, like, do you already offer that? And if not, why? And if you did, how much would it cost, right? How much would it add to the cost of the hat to give your customer that option? I just feel like there's some people that would pay, and obviously there's got to be a sweet spot, right? There's got to be a spot where it becomes worth adding that option, that complexity to the hat. It's just something that I noticed in all my hats, and I feel like, well, not all my hats, but a lot of my hats, and I feel like that's something that people, it's like a nice little touch, right? And who wouldn't want to have a hat with their initials on it? It kind of says, okay, regardless of whether this hat stays in my collection, it will always bear my initials, and even if it gets rehomed, right? I feel like that's a good thing. So just coming up here in terms of the obviously we know about peeking under the hood. I coined that term, right, from my fellow car guys. Right here, right there, you already know the story. Dobbs, right? Dobbs was and probably was the original, one of the original parts of Hat Corporation of America, even before it was Hat Corporation of America. That was Dobbs, right? And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But this label right here, if you guys kind of know if you watch my previous videos, you already know, based on this label, it's a Hat Corporation of America hat. In addition to that, we now know what era this hat came from, right? Well, yeah, I will repeat myself, right? You have the 4 pieces of information here. You have the oval, the 2 duplicate, the block number, and the hat size. It looks like it was kind of filled in here in terms of 7 1/8. It kind of put a little, it looks like a little 0, but that is just 7 1/8. I know it's a 7 1/8 hat. You already saw the tag, but we do notice that sometimes the labeling gets faded, and somebody will go in with a pen and just like fill in the information. But the reason we know it's from the 60s is what's not here, right? What we don't find here between the block number and the hat size is the crown height, right? No crown height here listed, as was usual, as was standard for Hat Corporation of America in the 1950s, right? They dropped the crown height here from the label in the 1960s, according to hatitprofessor.com. And until I hear otherwise, I'm going to take that as fact. So now that already tells me that this is a hat from the 60s. And I probably don't know anything else beyond that. Right. So Peller and Mure, we know, existed all the way up to the 1999. So, you know, we don't have any other further information in terms of dating this hat. And I'm fine with that. I'm okay with knowing it's just from the 60s. Again, just like usual, some chat GPT about Dobbs in specific, right? We kind of have some of this information already from my initial gatherings of information, my initial research on Hat Corporation of America and John Kavanaugh. But just for completion's sake, we'll talk about Dobbs in specific, which is founded in 1909. Dobbs and Company was created as a retail outlet for Crowfoot and Knapp, or C&K, by John Kavanaugh and marketing strategist Robert A. Holmes. They named the company after H. DeWitt Dobbs. Now, again, I'm going to correct something I mentioned before. I for some reason, I had it in my mind that Dobbs was the first name for Dobbs was Charles. That's why I talked about the 2 Charleses, Charles Dobbs and Charles Knox. Turns out there was no Charles Dobbs, or maybe there was a Charles Dobbs at some point that I picked that up from. But it turns out that this Dobbs was named after a gentleman called H. DeWitt Dobbs, a respected manager from Dunlap and Company, positioning him as a credible figurehead in New York's hat scene. All right. H. DeWitt Dobbs had a long retail career and influential connections. His family had political ties to Tammany Hall and even founded Dobbs Ferry, New York. All right. Interesting. Shout out to Dobbs Ferry, New York. I did not know that. There you go. We learned together. The inaugural store opened at 242 Fifth Avenue in New York City, and then moved to 244 Fifth Avenue right around 1915 to 1917, and later to the flagship location located at 620 Fifth Avenue, eventually expanding to 618 Fifth Avenue and 2nd West 50th Street in good old Manhattan, I'm assuming. So yeah, evolution and industrial impact. After initial success, Dobbs and Company went bankrupt in 1931, yet the brand lived on. There you go. We talked about the staying power of brands, and this goes to show you that just when the when something goes bad with the business, the brand can still live on. In 1928, Dobbs merged with Kavanaugh Hats, becoming Kavanaugh Dobbs Incorporated. By 1932, Kavanaugh Dobbs merged further with Knox and Dunlap to form Hat Corporation of America, solidifying a dominant position in U.S. hat manufacturing. Excuse me. And hat dating, clues, and label evolution. Specifically useful for hat collectors, Dobbs hat liners and labels evolved over time and can help date them. For example, 1933 to 1935 hats may feature the NRA Blue Eagle label tied to the New Deal era price controls. Around 1934, the brand began using a roundel liner design. By 1940, standardized factory labels came into play. Debossed sweatbands displaying Dobbs in a gold or leather began before World War II and continued into the mid-20th century. In the early 1950s, hats bore the Office of Price Stabilization, or OPS, labels, marking the exception period during the Korean War. Wow, interesting. The gilt edge, adopted around 1944, was Dobbs' version of the better-known Kavanaugh edge, a fine finish around the hat brim. So you can see here that the Kavanaugh edge had a sister or brother in the gilt edge, for Dobbs, right? So so on the Dobbs version, you would have a gilded edge or a gilt edge. In Kavanaugh, you would have the Kavanaugh edge. It's basically the same thing, but with a different name. Just goes to show you what the kind of the marketing wheels, right, behind the Kavanaugh machine, right? He basically said, okay, we're going to take the same innovation. Ian said, surprising, going bankrupt in 1931 at the height of hat wearing. Yeah. Again, I'm kind of thinking of the Great Depression. Every time I think of the 30s and the 20s, right, I start thinking about, okay, is this before the Great Depression? Or during the Great Depression, or right after the Great Depression? Maybe there was something there, like, right? Maybe if this is, I can't remember when the Ian, do you know when the Great Depression? Or maybe you can look it up really quickly. I should know this, but I don't have it off, and I don't want to kind of spew misinformation. But yeah, going bankrupt in 1931 may have been some sort of fallout from the Great Depression, either leading up to it or after the Great Depression. It's just something that comes to my mind every time I think about that. So yeah, it was the height of hat wearing. It was something where, regardless of the economic period, right, there could be something where we know that Kavanaugh had big ideas, right, and maybe what happened was he invested too much money in some sort of big idea that ended up, causing him to fall flat, right? We do know that a lot of the great businessmen of all times, right, from past, present, and future, are known to make mistakes, right? You make mistakes, but you keep at it, right? So a lot of folks will declare bankruptcy. A lot of great businesses started off as failed businesses, right? And then they evolved, right? So the businessman went and said, okay, we did that. Maybe we had a little bit too much hubris, and we put too much money and too much investment in a failed idea. But I will go and I will declare bankruptcy, and then I will reemerge stronger. And we know that that Hat Corporation of America ultimately did emerge out of all this and was a powerhouse, right? They were big hat, so to speak. So yeah, Ian says from October 1929 to from 29 October 1929, Wall Street crash, to 1939. So there you go. So it looks like this business failed during the Great Depression, right? Maybe Kavanaugh invested in stocks, right? Like Groucho Marx. Groucho Marx was obviously the very famous actor of that time. And he happened to be a very, very big investor. And he lost quite a bit of money in the stock market crash, the big Wall Street crash of 1929. So maybe Kavanaugh also did the same thing. Maybe he invested into a bunch of stocks and ended up losing a lot of the company money in Wall Street. Again, I have no basis of that as fact, but maybe maybe that's something somebody can look up at a later time. So yeah, it looks like they called it quits in 1931, right around in the beginning of that Great Depression, or just after that Wall Street crash, which kind of started the Great Depression. But the nice thing is that they reemerged, and they eventually became a powerhouse. So just kind of to show you, if you are you currently in business, or you want to become a business, just know that failure, right? Failure is something that you have to kind of view failure in a different way. There's actually a really good adage that a lot of sports, you guys already know I watch a lot of MMA. There's a MMA fighter called Conor McGregor, who's kind of really lambasted now. He's kind of become kind of a big meme right now. But he had some really good sayings that he borrowed. And one of the ones that he would reiterate was, I never fail. I always either win or I learn, right? There's no such thing as failure. And I think you have to kind of carry yourself if you're in business like that, because you can't be too scared to take a chance, right? It's like scared money don't make no money, right? That whole adage. You can't be too scared to invest in yourself, right? Never be scared to invest in yourself and your ideas, because you just want to be smart about it. Doesn't mean you want to be cavalier with your investments, but you also want to have a very good risk tolerance. Ian says, I suppose hats didn't sell so well either, or their quality was too expensive for most. Yeah, if you lost your job, right? And we know a lot of people lost their jobs because companies tightened their belts, right, to deal with the depression. It's kind of hard to kind of spring that, I don't know, the $20, right? If there was a Dobbs or Knox 20 that you had, right? I'm assuming that existed in the Depression era. If there was a Dobbs 20 or a Knox 20, that's $20 is a lot of money. You know what I mean? I don't think $20 is nothing to sneeze at now. Right? I take care of not spending $20 foolhardily now. You can imagine in the Great Depression, $20 is the meaning, is probably the X amount days or weeks or maybe months of food. So that's gonna impact, right? We just probably it's very, very similar to the economy we have now. Consumer spending is a big part of the economy, right? So one person's spending is another person's income, right? Like that's kind of basic economics. And I think that was true. That's definitely true now, and I'm pretty sure it was still true that back then. When the average man or average person, I'm going to try to make this inclusive here. When the average person could no longer spare that discretionary income, right? Maybe because they also lost their shirt in the stock market. Now maybe they borrowed money to invest in the stock market. So now when the stocks cratered and they still had the debt, a lot of people had to declare bankruptcy, I'd imagine. Banks, we know that there were bank runs, right? People were scared that their bank was going under and they took all their money out. So now you got people hiding money under their mattresses, and they're like watching their spending, right? We know that generation that went through the Great Depression, their spending habits and their trajectory altered forever based on what they went through, right? It was a time of austerity. So you can see that John Kavanaugh was no exception to this. Even though he ultimately became successful, he went through those issues, right? It's impossible for him to not feel the effects. So yeah, luckily he made it through, and he did become kind of, like I said, John Kavanaugh is part of my Mount Rushmore of U.S. hatters. So shout out to John Kavanaugh for failing and still having the belief in his industry and in his ideas to be able to still make it happen and be successful. You see here, this is probably my last slide. So sorry about that. I'm having a little trouble with my Zoom. Let's see if I can do this without. Oh, no, wait a minute. There we go. That's what I want. I was back in my old slide. All right. Modern legacy and production. Although the original company no longer exists, The Dobbs brand lives on, right? There you go. The lastingness of the brand. Manufactured today through the Hatco factory in Garland, Texas. Remember Hatco? We talked about Hatco just yesterday, right? So it still exists. Apparently, Hatco also produces Dobbs in the factory in Garland, Texas. I really got to get over to Garland, Texas, and see if I can get a tour of that factory. Maybe I'll be able to film it. And, I'll show you guys. I think that'd be neat. At least I'll take photos, and maybe you guys can I could share that with you guys. But yeah, Dobbs still lives on. They're manufactured alongside other legacy names like Stetson and Resistol. Modern lines stay true to the brand's roots, offering straw, so the Florentine Milan and the Shantoon, and felt dress hats, fedoras, Hamburgs, and gamblers among them. These styles reflect both traditional craftsmanship and contemporary flair. So current styles that they offer, I probably won't go through all this stuff here because you guys can kind of read that in your at your leisure, right? Feel free to kind of pause the video here, when it's no longer live, and you can kind of read through this, or you can just pop up Chat GPT and just look it up yourself. But it just doesn't seem like it's gonna move the conversation. Ian says, I would be surprised if any factory turned down free advertising. Yeah. I'll be honest. I mean, I got to imagine that, again, even though my channel is not like it's not a ginormous channel, but I think you're right, Ian. Maybe I'll pose that and say, hey, I happen to be part of the Good Loops channel. We focus on hats. Would you mind terribly if I videoed while I toured the factory? Hopefully, like I said, I'll be very respectful, and hopefully, flash the smile, and maybe I can convince somebody up front to make an exception if they don't do that, right? You never know. Sometimes a smile, a little smile will be enough to make it happen. I'm not beyond flashing a smile to kind of get into the factory, And Ian says it's directly aimed at hat fans. Correct. I just see it as a no-brainer. But again, we do know that sometimes these manufacturers, they might have trade secrets or something like that. Who knows what's going on? You never know. So I'll try to be gracious, and if they turn me down, I just won't film. And maybe they instead of filming, they'll accept pictures. But I'll see what the ground rules are, and I'll try to follow the rules. Unless I'm feeling exceptionally devilish. But again, I want to be respectful. I'm a respectful guy. So I'll try to follow the rules. So yeah, community insights. Collectors and enthusiasts emphasize proper fitting and care. So these are direct quotes, this time from Reddit. Somebody said, I've never had a good experience ordering online. Have inconsistent sizing in recent years, ... Go to a local store, ... Get fitted and shaped. So this is kind of talking about ordering directly from Hatco, I believe, right? So if you're going to order directly from Hatco, I'm going to bring you the good as well as the bad, right? This is Chat GPT, not filtering anything, and I'm not going to filter it, right? Just know that this is a direct quote. I don't know who said this quote. I don't know what kind of agenda they might have had. Don't take anything in here. Don't take anything on this channel as like gospel, right? This is just a lot of this stuff happens to be opinion, and including my own, including those of the folks that participate here, and just use your good judgment, right? So it says this reflects the hands-on tradition and bespoke nature of hatting. All right. Another insight points to corporate ownership. They're owned by Hatco. They were separate companies in the past, but got bought up and then more standardized. Okay. Well, that's not necessarily a good or bad thing, right? So regardless of how you feel about Hatco, I'm sure there's some purists out there that'd be like, all right, Hatco is nowhere near. Like, I wouldn't buy a Hatco made Dobbs or Resistol or Stetson because they're not keeping it real, right? I don't care. I mean, I've seen some modern Stetsons. Morgan is a big Stetson fan. She happens to like a lot of the current models. I do as well. I shared my Stetson Downs that by all means seems like a fine hat. I also have a Stetson from the 1930s. They're also a fine hat. So Obviously one's made by Stetson, probably the original Stetson. One's probably a Hatco hat, and they both seem like fine hats to me. So I got no dog in that race. So yeah, that's basically my slideshow for Dobbs, right? Again, this kind of is in line with all of the videos that I've mentioned in the past about Hat Corporation of America. Again, I have a high regard for John Kavanaugh. I don't know what I could tell you about John Kavanaugh, the man, other than he was very litigious, right? So maybe he was not. Maybe he was a great man, meaning like in terms of he did great things, but maybe he wasn't a nice man. I don't know. You could maybe those two things have nothing to do with each other, right? Maybe he's just a protective man and protected his brand so carefully that he was willing to take you to court. I do know that somebody like John B. Stetson did a lot of great things. It seemed like a very nice and caring man. John Kavanaugh, I don't know. Maybe somebody else will come in and share what they know about John Kavanaugh, the man, and maybe he turns out to be a big jerk. I don't know. I don't know, because I never met any of these folks. I'm only telling you about the research that I've done. And by all means, John B. Stetson seemed to come across as a humanitarian, a philanthropist at the very least, and did great things with all the money he made from his hat sales. John Kavanaugh, maybe not as philanthropic, definitely was very influential and powerful. But again, I can't tell you anything more than that than I already know. So yeah, that's it. I mean, basically that kind of concludes today's episode. Thanks for rocking with me. If you joined us late, right? I went here. I had Paul earlier, and we were kind of shooting the breeze along with my moderator Ian, and we were talking about the new direction of this channel, right? So if you missed that content, I'll repeat it really quickly. We're going to change the format of this channel, right? We're going to still have Hat Chat, but Hat Chat starting from now after this show will be only for guests, right? Only for predetermined guests that want to come on the show. So if Paul comes to me and says, Luke, I'd like to have a Hat Chat show dedicated to talking about whatever topic Paul comes up with, then that will be a Hat Chat series. If Kevin comes on here, that will be part of the Hat Chat series. The nice thing is that it will be some of the things that you're already used to, but it will not necessarily happen always at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right? And it won't be every day, right? So this is kind of the end of Hat Chat on a daily basis, unless I happen to line up a set of guests every day, and it might not, like, I don't see that happening, right? Like, I haven't had any other guests on here other than Paul Murphy, and we'll see. Kevin's already promised to come on. Johnny, fellow YouTuber that's just starting out, has promised to come on here, and somebody else I'm missing that I think promised to come on here. But yeah, as I line these folks up, and obviously if you know these gentlemen, obviously go subscribe to their YouTube channels and then ask them, right? It's like, hey, when are you going to collaborate with the Good Lukes, right? Nudge them, do that little thing of like, as long as you do it respectfully, right? Don't be like, hey, jerk, why are you keeping my man Luke waiting? It's like, don't do that. Like I said, I don't think that's a good way to go and get somebody to go and get on my channel. I don't give you any permission, or obviously you can do whatever you want, but don't speak for Good Luke, because that's not something that I would do. But if you want to do that and you subscribe, say, hey, I'm a subscriber, I really want to see you go on that channel, or can you invite Good Luke's over to your channel, right? I have yet to go on another channel yet, but doesn't mean I won't. I think Kevin invited me on his channel, so maybe that's how I'll start off. Before Kevin comes on here, maybe I'll appear on Kevin's channel first, and then maybe he'll come on. But either way, it doesn't matter, as long as we're collaborating. I don't care if it's on my channel or somebody else's channel. I just want to go and meet new hat nerds, and maybe that'll inspire them to come visit me. I don't know, who knows, but I just want to interact with you guys, and I'll try to keep you guys abreast of if I have an appearance coming up. I'll make a post or a YouTube short. That way you guys know what's going on and you guys can catch it. So yeah, that has been Hat Chat number 26. So now, in addition to that, before I close out, there's going to be 2 other series on here. Starting tomorrow, there will be a series called Hat Tuesdays, right? It's kind of a nod to Fat Tuesdays in Louisiana. Fat Tuesdays is kind of like it's very similar to Carnival, right? It's like the U.S. version of Carnival, like in Brazil. It is kind of a celebration that happens where people kind of like feast before Lent, right? Lent is a holiday that's connoted with fasting, which you guys kind of already know that I do, but I do it kind of on a day-to-day basis, right? Or hour-to-hour basis. I do intermittent fasting, and I feel like it's perfect segue to create a segment called Hat Tuesdays, kind of a play on Fat Tuesdays. And it'll be very similar to some of the format that you've kind of seen so far on Hat Chat. We'll maybe pick out a hat, right? It doesn't have to be my hat, right? It could be a hat that belongs to Paul. Maybe it's a hat that belongs to Ian. Maybe it's a hat that belongs to Morgan or any of the subscribers or people that happen to interact with the channel. And maybe I can get them on video and then have them show the hat, how they came to get the hat, why the hat is significant for them. That whole 9, basically what I do with the Hat Chat series you've seen so far, but it will be part of Hat Tuesdays, and it'll be weekly, right? That'll give me enough time just in case I'm not able to line somebody out to kind of showcase another hat in my collection or do something that will be in the spirit of Hat Tuesdays, and we'll make that a weekly thing. So tomorrow will be Hat Tuesdays, Hat Tuesday number 1. Right, it'll be a momentous occasion for the birth of Hat Tuesday, the inaugural launching, the maiden voyage, so to speak. And then on Fridays, thanks to my good man Ian here, I'm gonna have Fedora Fridays, and Fedora Fridays will be focused on all things pop culture, right? So it'll be things like famous celebrities, famous films, famous hat films, maybe even famous books. I don't know, hat-related books. Anything kind of like talking about current events, maybe. So it'll be a Fedora Friday, but it'll be kind of another kind of version of a weekly show dedicated to all things pop culture and hat-related pop culture, And I feel like that's got legs, especially on the movie front, right? So we already teased 3 movies that we could do for this coming Friday, right? We could do King of New York, we could do Road to Perdition, or we could do any one of the first 2 Godfathers, because I feel like there were good hats in both of them. Maybe we'll just stick it to God. We'll just stick with Godfather 1, and that'll be kind of like maybe Hamburg related. I don't know. It's not set in stone. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pose that to my board, right after this show. I will discuss it with my board, and maybe if we come to a decision as to what movie we're going to do, I will go and maybe create another post and say, hey guys, Hat Tuesday will be about this, and upcoming Fedora Friday will be about that. And then you guys get a little preview. And maybe if you have a chance to see the movie, right, you either have a chance to watch the movie for the first time or rewatch the movie. And maybe that will feed into the discussion, right? So just good things to come. I feel like this is going to be sustainable, at least in the interim. And then like I mentioned, we'll see how it lives. It may be a complete failure, right? But what we learned from John Kavanagh is that sometimes with failure comes a success, right? We'll take the L. We'll take the L, like the kids say, temporarily, and then it will lead to override. We'll lose the battle to win the war. So that's what's coming up. I'm very excited about it. And hopefully you guys will rock with me. And then feel free to leave a comment, right? Feel free to leave a comment either during this live stream before I close it or after I close the live stream. If you happen to watch this in syndication, right? If you watch this afterwards, let me know what you think about the new idea, the 3-headed monster, I'm going to call it, right? The new Hat Chat idea, the new Hat Tuesdays idea, and the new Fedora Fridays idea. I think it's got the legs, but you guys let me know, and I'll discuss it on my board. I'll look at your feedback, if any, and then I'll make a call. Maybe I'll make that call initially for this week, and then depending on popular demand, I'll either can it and do something else or some alteration on it. But this has been Luke with Hat Chat number 26. Pretty much kind of the end. I wish you guys and my US viewers a happy and safe Labor Day and a great day off for you guys. To my folks in the UK and elsewhere internationally, I still hope you have a great Monday, regardless of whether you celebrate Labor Day or not. But this has been Luke with Hat Chat number 26. And obviously, do what says here. Go support Paul. Go support Kevin. Go support all the folks that are affiliates with my channel and their various YouTube channels and businesses. But also do the same with Good Luke's, right? We got a contest coming up. I mentioned that before. I'm going to give away after 100 subscribers. I'm going to do a video on this hat. Maybe it'll be a future Hat Tuesday segment once I get to 100 subscribers, and all my subscribers will have a chance to win this hat, right? As long as you post a comment on that video, either live or sometime after that video is posted, and I will randomly draw you to win this Knox green colored. It's a little moth bitten, like I mentioned, but it's not so bad. It might actually be salvageable. As far as I know, it doesn't have any moth eggs. All these moths were there to begin with, and I have not noticed any new moth bites. I try to keep track of these hats. But it has this kind of ribbon. I'm not a kind of Western style or Alpine style ribbon or rope. Not my style, and maybe this hat is going to be better in your collection or on your head rather than my collection and on my head. But either way, I will get a video on this hat. We'll celebrate the 100 subscribers, and then we'll figure out how to give away this hat. So stay tuned. A lot of good things to come. So like and subscribe, right? Get in on the ground floor. Do that now, right? So that you can be eligible later on to win that Knox. And even if you don't, right? Even if you just do me one favor, if I could just do me one little favor. Stay hatting, my friend. Have a great day. Ciao.